Neo-Confucian order is subversive to ordered liberty. The U.S. department that allows immigration of entire orders or the elements of that order that then reform, approximating the same order, extending the same order as back home into the United States, extending Neo-Confucian order into the United States is committing treason, or it's committing clear subversion of the purposes of the Constitution, the preamble of the Constitution, the 6 purposes laid out in the U.S. Constitution. When Indian, Pakistani, Chinese, Asian immigrants, crypto-fascist, crypto-feudal immigrants, Neo-Confucian immigrants come into the United States and they import the entire intergenerational order of their psychotic, sadomasochistic way of life back home, that is antithetical to the American Republic. It's antithetical to the American way of life. It's antithetical to liberty and ordered liberty, right? At best, that intergenerational order, when it reforms, has to be understood as a contract. And here's the thing. The American Republic was meant to be a multi-ordered republic. Each state, we were supposed to embrace the idea of multiple orders, like the Quakers in Pennsylvania and the Mormons in Utah, that each state would have a predominant order by the predominant pervading group of that state. We were supposed to be a multi-ordered republic. The way Israel even acknowledges Sharia for Muslims, and India acknowledges Sharia for Muslims, and the Prophet acknowledged, halakha for the Jews in Medina, right? So you have to understand that the U.S. government is super hypocritical, because there's a clear implied and explicit contract. There's a clear implied and explicit contract amongst these group of people. There's an alternative order. They're not participating in the general order of the United States. There's an alternative order in which they're participating, which is an extension and projection of order from back home, from whatever Asian country they come from. It's a projection of the order from those countries into the United States of America. And it's subversive. It's not American. It's contradictory to the American way of life. And that alternative order has to be understood as a contract. And that contract has to be constructed equitably. And that contract is it's not religious liberty. This whole contract does not always have to do with religion, right? It has to do with whatever, it has to do with formation, de facto constitution of order back home, right? So that has to be understood as a contract, implied, explicit, a multifaceted contract that exists and persists from back home and should be governed effectively by the American Republic. And when the American Republic fails to constrain and govern that contract as a meta contract, the U.S. Constitution has to govern that imported order. And when it fails to govern the imported order, and an individual, against their will, without their consent, the order rapes their life, then the U.S. government is responsible for fully compensating and restoring that person, and for punishing the alternative order that they've imported into the United States. There should not be a Pakistan inside of America. There should not be a China inside of America. There should be some version of Chinese order amongst Chinese immigrants, but it has to be different than back home. It has to be governed. It has to be very different than back home. And if it's not, then the people who are forcefully subjected to such order have to be given restitution. They have to be given restitution. And as an autistic person, I'm intuitively a contracts person. I've negotiated at least 4 different divorce agreements from my father starting at the age of 20. Actually starting at puberty, because as a strong Muslim, as a Muslim, I become adult at puberty. And so since puberty, I'm and aware that my father and me are on a different wavelength, just not clearly articulating it yet. I'm negotiating divorce agreements since puberty with my father. And he is using my desire to escape to re-entrap me repeatedly and waste more and more of my life and more and more of my time as a punishment for the desire to disassociate from his crypto-fascist, crypto-absolutist, Neo-Confucian, sadistic, cuntbag way of living. From his sadomasochistic way of living. Anyways, that's it.